You're pregnant." Meredith Clark felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The doctor's words echoed in her mind as she held the test results with trembling hands. Pregnant. Her, who could barely afford the rent on her tiny Brooklyn apartment. Her who had just been promoted from assistant to junior manager at Ashford & Co., Manhattan's largest investment firm. Her who was completely, irrevocably in love with her boss, the most unattainable man in New York. 2 days ago, Meredith's life was completely different. "Clark, my office. Now." Theodore Ashford's deep voice cut through the 42nd floor executive hall like elegant thunder. Meredith swallowed hard, adjusted her white blouse, the most expensive one she owned bought on sale, and walked toward the glass-walled office that dominated Manhattan's skyline. 3 years working there, and she still felt butterflies in her stomach every time he summoned her. Theodore Ashford was the kind of man who seemed sculpted to illustrate the word power. At 36, he had transformed his father's company into an empire. Black hair, always impeccable, gray-blue eyes that seemed to read her soul, a square jaw that could cut diamonds. And that suit. Meredith forced herself to focus. "Sit down." He didn't look up from the documents in front of him. She obeyed, crossing her legs and trying to look professional while her heart raced. In the last 6 months, something had changed between them. Glances that lasted a second too long. Hands that accidentally touched when passing documents. Conversations that extended far beyond business hours. The Fitzgerald Corporation. Theodore finally raised his eyes, and Meredith felt the impact of that penetrating gaze. "You know them?" "Of course. They're the 3rd largest tech company in the country. There are rumors they're looking for investors to expand into Europe." An almost imperceptible smile curved his lips. That smile he reserved only for her. "They're not rumors, and I want that contract." He leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming on the leather armrest. "It's worth $80 million, Meredith. $80 million that would put Ashford & Coburn permanently on top." "That's incredible. When do negotiations begin?" "They already have, with you leading them." The silence that followed was deafening. Meredith blinked, certain she had heard wrong. "Me? But, Theodore, I'm just an assistant. I mean junior manager now, but still. You're the most brilliant person in this company." He stood, walking around the desk with that feline elegance that left her breathless. "In the last 3 years, every project you've touched has turned to gold. Every report you've prepared has been flawless. Every client you've served left impressed." He stopped in front of her, so close that Meredith could smell the woody scent of his cologne. So close that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I trust you, Meredith. The question is, do you trust yourself?" In that moment, with Theodore Ashford looking at her as if she were the only woman in the world, Meredith would have said yes to anything, absolutely anything. "I accept." "Excellent." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, he held it a moment longer, his thumb tracing a soft circle over her skin. "The business dinner is tomorrow night. Wear something memorable." And that's how Meredith Clark, the girl who grew up in a trailer in Kansas, found herself the next day sitting at Le Bernardin, New York's most exclusive restaurant, closing an $80 million deal, while Theodore Ashford watched her from across the table with evident pride in his eyes. That's how, celebrating with champagne in his penthouse at 2 in the morning, they finally crossed the line between boss and employee, between professional admiration and uncontrollable desire. That's how she woke up 2 days later, discovering she was pregnant by Manhattan's most coveted CEO. And that's how, returning to the office that morning with the test results in her purse, she found Victoria Ashford Remington, daughter of the company's majority partner, sitting in Theodore's chair, smiling like a cat that had just found a mouse. "Ah, Meredith. Good, you're here." Victoria examined her perfectly manicured nails. "We have a lot to discuss about your future here. Or the lack of it." Meredith's world, which was already upside down, had just turned into a complete hurricane. Victoria Ashford Remington was everything Meredith would never be. Old money, Princeton educated, and dangerously beautiful in that cold, calculated way that came from generations of breeding. Her platinum blonde hair fell in perfect waves over her Chanel suit, and her green eyes sparkled with malice, disguised as concern. "Close the door, darling." Victoria's voice dripped honey laced with arsenic. Meredith's hand instinctively went to her purse, where the pregnancy test results felt like they were burning a hole through the leather. "Where's Theodore?" "Mr. Ashford," Victoria emphasized the formality, "is in an emergency meeting with the board. My father called it. Apparently there are some concerns about the Fitzgerald deal." "Concerns?" "The contract was signed yesterday. Everything went perfectly." "Did it?" Victoria stood, her 5-inch Louboutins clicking against the marble floor as she circled Meredith like a shark. "See, that's the problem with people like you, Meredith. You're so busy climbing that you don't notice who's waiting to cut the rope." "What are you talking about?" Victoria pulled out her phone, tapping the screen with one perfectly manicured nail. "James Fitzgerald called my father this morning. Apparently he felt uncomfortable with how the deal concluded. Something about inappropriate conduct during negotiations." Meredith's blood ran cold. "That's absurd. Everything was completely professional." "Was it?" Victoria's smile widened. "Because I have a very interesting email here, from the Le Bernardin sommelier. Apparently you and Theodore stayed until closing, consumed 3 bottles of their finest champagne, and were seen being quite affectionate." "We were celebrating a successful deal." "In his penthouse? Until 3 in the morning?" Victoria tisked. "Poor Meredith. Did you really think sleeping with the boss would secure your position? How pedestrian." The words hit like physical blows. Meredith felt her cheeks burn, but she forced herself to stand tall. "My relationship with Theodore is none of your business." "Relationship?" Victoria laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, honey, you don't have a relationship. You have a liability, and my father doesn't tolerate liabilities. Your father doesn't run this company alone. Theodore is brilliant, I'll give him that. But he's also my father's junior partner, and when it comes down to it, money talks." Victoria leaned in close enough that Meredith could smell her Hermès perfume. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign. Today. You'll sign an NDA, accept a generous severance package, and disappear from Theodore's life. Clean. Simple. Professional. And if I refuse?" Victoria's eyes glittered dangerously. "Then I'll make sure everyone knows how you manipulated your way into Theodore's bed to steal this deal. The board will investigate. The press will have a field day. Theodore's reputation will be destroyed, and you'll be blacklisted from every firm in the country. Is that really what you want?" Meredith's hand unconsciously moved to her stomach. The baby. Theodore's baby. He didn't even know yet. And now this viper was threatening to destroy everything before she even had a chance to tell him. "I need time to think." "You have until 5 o'clock. Victoria returned to Theodore's chair, dismissing her with a wave. "Oh, and Meredith, don't bother running to Theodore with this. He's in that board meeting for the next 4 hours. And when he comes out, the first thing he'll hear is my father's concerns about the company's reputation. About how we can't afford scandals. About how sometimes we have to make hard choices for the greater good." Meredith stumbled out of the office, her vision blurring. The pregnancy test felt like a ticking bomb in her purse. She had 6 hours to decide. Her career and Theodore's reputation, or the truth. The elevator ride to her desk felt like descending into hell. Her phone buzzed. A text from Theodore. "Board meeting running long. Dinner at 8. Need to talk about something important. T." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She needed to tell him everything. About the baby, about Victoria's threats, about the impossible choice she was being forced to make. But another text came through, this time from an unknown number. It was a photo. Her and Theodore, entering his building together 2 nights ago. Another photo. Them in the window of his penthouse, clearly in an embrace. And another, leaving together the next morning, her wearing the same clothes, his hand on the small of her back. The message below was simple. 5 p.m. Don't test me. Meredith sank into her chair, her hand trembling as she placed it over her still flat stomach. 26 years old, pregnant, and caught in a war between love and survival. Her computer pinged. An email from HR. Please report to conference room C at 4:45 p.m. Resignation papers will be prepared. They weren't even giving her until 5. The morning sun streaming through the windows seemed to mock her. Just 48 hours ago she was on top of the world. Now she was watching it crumble. But as Meredith sat there, something shifted inside her. Maybe it was the baby. Maybe it was the memory of Theodore's eyes when he said he trusted her. Maybe it was simply that she had fought too hard to get here to let some spoiled heiress tear it all down. She opened her laptop and began typing. If Victoria wanted a war, she'd give her one. Meredith's fingers flew across the keyboard, her mind sharper than it had been in days. Fear had a way of crystallizing into focus, and right now she was focused on survival. She pulled up every file she'd worked on for the past 3 years, every email, every contract, every negotiation. If Victoria wanted to play dirty, Meredith would remind her exactly who had built Theodore's recent success. Meredith Clark? A deep voice interrupted her concentration. She looked up to find Marcus Webb, Theodore's head of legal, standing at her desk. In his 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes, Marcus had always treated her with respect, unlike most of the senior staff. Marcus, I'm kind of in the middle of... I know what you're in the middle of. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. Conference room D, 5 minutes, and bring your phone. Before she could respond, he was gone. Meredith's heart hammered as she grabbed her belongings and made her way to the small conference room tucked away on the east side of the building. Marcus was already there, along with someone she didn't expect, Diane Rothschild, the company's chief financial officer and the only woman on the executive board. Sit down, honey. Diane's voice was warm but urgent. We don't have much time. What's going on? Marcus closed the door and drew the blinds. Victoria Ashford Remington is making a play. Not just against you, against Theodore. Meredith's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Diane pulled out a folder. For the past 6 months, Victoria has been quietly buying up shares through shell companies. Her father owns 35% of Ashford & Co. With the shares she's acquired, combined with proxies from 2 other board members, she's persuaded. She has 48%. Theodore has 40%, Marcus continued. Which means she needs just 3 more percent to take control, Meredith finished, her mind racing. And if she can prove Theodore acted inappropriately, engaged in an office romance that compromised a major deal, the remaining board members will vote him out as CEO, Diane said grimly. Her father becomes majority owner. Victoria gets Theodore's position, and the company her grandfather built becomes the Remington Empire. But the Fitzgerald deal is solid. I made sure of that. We know. Marcus smiled slightly. I reviewed every clause myself. It's bulletproof, which is why Victoria is attacking your relationship instead of the contract. She needs a scandal, not a legal issue. Meredith's hand instinctively went to her stomach. So what do I do? Diane leaned forward. You fight, and you let us help you. Why? Why would you risk your positions for me? Because Theodore Ashford is the best thing that ever happened to this company, Marcus said simply. His father was a visionary, but Theodore is a revolutionary. Under his leadership, we've tripled our revenue and maintained our integrity. Victoria only cares about profit margins and social status. And because, Diane added with a knowing smile, I've watched Theodore look at you for 3 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Whatever you two have, it's real. And real is worth fighting for. Meredith felt tears prick her eyes. Victoria has photos. Of us together. She's threatening to leak them. Let her, Marcus said. There's no company policy against relationships between executives. Theodore owns 40%. He can date whoever he wants. But the board cares about results, Diane interrupted. You just closed an $80 million deal. You've increased client retention by 32%. You've brought in more revenue in 3 years than some partners bring in a decade. Those are facts Victoria can't spin. Marcus pulled out his own folder. We've been documenting everything. Every contribution you've made. Every innovation. Every success. If Victoria wants to make this about your competence, we'll bury her in evidence of your brilliance. And if she makes it personal? Diane's smile turned sharp. Then we remind the board that Victoria has been through 3 assistants in 6 months, all young men who mysteriously transferred to other departments after filing complaints with HR that her father buried. We remind them that she's currently dating the married CEO of our biggest competitor. We remind them that the only reason she has a job here is nepotism, while you earned every promotion. Meredith stared at them, hope blooming in her chest for the first time all day. You'd really do this? We're already doing it, Marcus said. The question is, are you ready to stand and fight, or are you going to let Victoria Ashford Remington intimidate you into running? The pregnancy test in her purse felt heavier than ever. She had more than just herself to fight for now. She had Theodore's child, their future, a family that didn't even exist yet, but already meant everything. I'm ready to fight. Good. Diane stood. Because that board meeting ends in 20 minutes. When Theodore comes out, Victoria is going to ambush him with her accusations. We need you there, standing tall, with all your documentation ready. And Meredith, Marcus added, whatever happens, remember this. Love isn't a liability. It's the only thing worth risking everything for. As they left the conference room, Meredith's phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Conference room C, now. Last chance. Meredith deleted it and typed a new message to Theodore. Don't believe anything Victoria tells you. Trust me. I'll explain everything. I love you. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The war had officially begun. The boardroom doors burst open at exactly 4:47 p.m. Theodore Ashford emerged first, his jaw clenched, eyes storming. Behind him, Victoria's father, Heiress Remington, followed with the smug expression of a man who thought he'd already won. Theodore's gaze swept the executive floor and locked onto Meredith. In 3 strides, he was standing before her, his hand cupping her face with a tenderness that made her breath catch. Tell me she's lying, he whispered, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Tell me you didn't resign. I didn't. Meredith's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I'm not going anywhere. Thank God. He pressed his forehead against hers, oblivious to the dozen pairs of eyes watching them. When Harrison said you'd agreed to leave, that there were photos, that the deal was compromised, none of it's true, Theodore. It's a setup. I know. His eyes blazed with fury as he pulled back to look at her. I know because I know you, and I know my company. The Fitzgerald deal is solid. Our relationship is nobody's business, and anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me directly. How touching. Victoria's voice cut through the moment like a blade. She stood in the doorway of the boardroom, arms crossed, looking every inch the Ice Queen. But I'm afraid it's not that simple, Theodore. The board has concerns. The board, Theodore interrupted, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. Works for me, not the other way around. Actually, Heiress Remington stepped forward, adjusting his Rolex. The board works for the shareholders, and the shareholders are concerned about the company's reputation, about conflicts of interest, about junior employees sleeping their way into major deals. Meredith flinched, but Theodore's hand found hers, squeezing tight. Careful, Harrison. Theodore's voice could have frozen fire. Choose your next words very carefully. Or what? Victoria challenged. You'll fire us? You can't. My father owns more of this company than you do when you count his allied votes. 48%, Theodore said calmly. I did the math. You're still short. The color drained from Victoria's face. How did you really think I wouldn't notice shell companies buying up shares? That I wouldn't track every stock transfer? Theodore smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I've been watching you, Victoria, watching and waiting to see how far you'd go. This is absurd, Harrison sputtered. We're here to discuss Miss Clark's inappropriate conduct, not inappropriate conduct. Diane Rothschild's voice rang out as she approached with Marcus Webb. Let's discuss inappropriate conduct, Harrison. Should we start with how you've buried 3 HR complaints against your daughter? Or perhaps the insider trading investigation that mysteriously disappeared last year? Harrison's face turned purple. You have no proof? We have everything, Marcus said smoothly, holding up a tablet. Bank records, email trails, witness statements. And that's just the appetizer. Meredith watched in amazement as her allies dismantled the Remingtons' attack piece by piece. But Victoria wasn't done. This is all very dramatic, she said, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. But it doesn't change the fact that Theodore compromised a major deal by sleeping with his assistant. James Fitzgerald himself complained. Actually, a new voice interrupted. I didn't. Everyone turned to see James Fitzgerald himself stepping off the elevator, looking thoroughly confused. The silver-haired CEO of Fitzgerald Corporation approached with his lawyer in tow. Mr. Fitzgerald? Theodore's surprise was evident. What are you doing here? I got a very strange call from Harrison Remington this morning, claiming I'd expressed concerns about Miss Clark's conduct. He looked at Meredith with genuine warmth. I called my lawyer immediately because I'd expressed no such thing. In fact, I told my board just this morning that Miss Clark was the most impressive negotiator I'd encountered in 30 years of business. Victoria's mask finally cracked. That's impossible. You told my father. I told your father nothing, Fitzgerald said coldly. In fact, this is the first time I've spoken to him in 5 years, not since he tried to poach my VP of operations with promises he couldn't keep. The silence that followed was deafening. So let me understand this correctly, Theodore said, his voice deadly quiet. You fabricated a complaint from a client, manipulated board members, bought shares through illegal shell companies, and threatened the woman I love, all to stage a corporate coup. The woman you love. Victoria's laugh was brittle. Please, she's a nobody from Kansas who got lucky. You'll forget her in 6 months. I'm pregnant. The words fell like a bomb. Meredith hadn't planned to say it. Not like this, not in front of everyone. But suddenly it was the only truth that mattered. Theodore's hand tightened around hers as he stared at her, his eyes wide with shock and something else. Something that looked like joy. He couldn't finish the sentence. Pregnant, Meredith confirmed, tears streaming down her face. With your baby. And I wasn't going to let Victoria chase me away before I could tell you. I wasn't going to let her take this from us. For a moment, the entire floor held its breath. Then Theodore laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that echoed through the office. He swept Meredith into his arms, spinning her around as if they were alone. We're having a baby, he whispered against her hair. God, Meredith, we're having a baby. This is insane, Victoria shrieked. You're going to ruin everything for some trailer trash who trapped you. Enough! Harrison's roar surprised everyone. He grabbed his daughter's arm, his face ashen. Not another word. We're leaving. Now. But Daddy. Now, Victoria! As the Remingtons retreated to the elevators, Theodore turned to address the gathered employees. Let me make something perfectly clear, he announced. Meredith Clark is the most talented person in this company. She's also the woman I'm going to marry, the mother of my child, and anyone who has a problem with that can submit their resignation immediately. The floor erupted in applause. The champagne sat untouched on Theodore's desk. Non-alcoholic, he'd specified when his assistant brought it. The first of many adjustments they'd make together. You didn't have to do that, Meredith said softly, watching the city lights twinkle through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The marriage announcement. You don't have to marry me just because… Stop. Theodore crossed the room in 2 strides, tilting her chin up until their eyes met. I was planning to propose next week. Had the ring custom-made 3 months ago. The only thing that's changed is the timeline. And honestly, I'm glad. I don't want to wait another second. He pulled a small velvet box from his desk drawer. Inside, a stunning emerald-cut diamond caught the light, surrounded by smaller stones that sparkled like stars. Meredith Clark, you've been the best part of my life since the day you corrected my analysis in front of the entire board and didn't even flinch when I glared at you. His smile was tender, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. Marry me. Not because of the baby, not because of Victoria, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Yes, she breathed, laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. The kiss that followed was interrupted by a sharp knock. Marcus Webb entered, his expression grim. We have a problem. Theodore's arm tightened protectively around Meredith. What now? Harrison Remington just filed an emergency petition with the board. He's calling for a vote of no confidence tomorrow morning at 9. Marcus handed over a document. He's claiming you've compromised the company's integrity and demanding immediate removal as CEO. He doesn't have the votes, Theodore said confidently. He might. Marcus's jaw tightened. He's offered the remaining independent board members significant financial incentives, and Victoria's been working the phones all evening. She's spinning this as you choosing personal gratification over corporate responsibility. Meredith felt sick. This is my fault. If I just resign… Don't even finish that sentence. Theodore's voice was steel. This is exactly what they want. To make you feel like the problem when the only problem is their greed and entitlement. But if the board votes you out, then I'll start my own firm and take every major client with me. He said it with such casual certainty that Meredith almost believed it would be that simple. Theodore, Marcus said carefully, you'd lose everything your father built, everything you've worked for. For a moment, Theodore's mask slipped. Meredith saw the weight he carried, the legacy, the responsibility, the expectations. Then he looked at her, at the ring now sparkling on her finger, and his expression softened. No, he said quietly. I'd lose a company, but I'd keep everything that actually matters. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the glass wall, they could see a crowd gathering around the elevators. Then Meredith's heart stopped. Her mother stepped onto the executive floor. Linda Clark looked exactly as she had the last time Meredith had seen her 2 years ago. Tired, worn, but with that same iron determination that had raised a daughter in a Kansas trailer park and pushed her to dream bigger. Mom? Meredith rushed out, Theodore close behind. What are you doing here? Saw the news. Linda held up her phone, which displayed a TMZ headline. Billionaire CEO's secret romance with assistant, baby on the way. How did they… Meredith started, but the answer was obvious. Victoria. I came because I needed to look this man in the eye, Linda said, turning to Theodore with a gaze that could have melted titanium. You got my daughter pregnant? Mom, please. Yes, ma'am, Theodore said, extending his hand. Theodore Ashford. And I love your daughter more than anything in this world. Linda ignored his hand. Love. That's a pretty word. You know what my daughter's heard before? Promises. From her father, who left when she was 6. From her high school boyfriend, who dumped her the day she got her college acceptance. From every person who said she wasn't good enough because of where she came from. I'm not those people. Prove it. Linda's voice cracked slightly. Because right now I'm watching the news say my baby girl is a gold digger who trapped a rich man. I'm reading comments calling her every name in the book. And you're standing here in your fancy office while she takes all the hits. The truth of it hit Theodore visibly. You're right, he said. God, you're absolutely right. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Jessica, get me the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and every major news outlet. I'm giving an exclusive interview in 1 hour. And call our PR team. We're going on offense. Theodore, what are you doing? Meredith asked. What I should have done the moment Victoria made her first threat. His eyes blazed with determination. I'm telling our story, all of it. The truth about the Remingtons' coup attempt, the fabricated complaints, the shell companies, and most importantly, the truth about us. The board won't like that, Marcus warned. Then they can vote me out tomorrow, Theodore said. But they'll do it knowing exactly what kind of people the Remingtons are. Within the hour, Theodore's office had transformed into a media circus. Cameras, lights, reporters, all there to hear Manhattan's most eligible bachelor tell the world about the woman he loved. Miss Clark didn't seduce me for professional gain, Theodore said, looking directly into the camera. She challenged me, impressed me, and over 3 years, made me a better businessman and a better man. The Fitzgerald deal succeeded because of her brilliance, not despite it. And yes, we're having a baby, something I'm thrilled about. But what about the allegations of impropriety? A reporter asked. The only impropriety here is a desperate attempt by minority shareholders to seize control of a company through lies and manipulation. Theodore's voice was ice. The Remingtons have engaged in insider trading, harassment, and fraud. I have documentation proving all of it, and I've already turned it over to the SEC. Meredith watched from the corner, her mother's hand in hers, as Theodore systematically dismantled Victoria's attack. When he finished, he walked straight to Meredith and pulled her into frame. This is the woman I love, he told the cameras, the woman I'm going to marry, and if the board doesn't like it, they know where to find me. As the reporters filed out, Linda finally spoke. Okay, he's not too bad. Theodore laughed, genuine and relieved. High praise from a Clark woman, I suspect. Don't get cocky, Mr. Ashford, but Linda was smiling. You've got 8 months to prove you're good enough for my daughter. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Outside, rain began to fall on Manhattan. Tomorrow would bring the board vote, Victoria's next move, and consequences no one could predict. But tonight, in Theodore's office, Meredith Clark felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The boardroom felt like a gladiatorial arena at 8:45 a.m. Meredith sat in the gallery section, her mother on one side, Diane on the other. Below, Theodore stood at the head of the massive mahogany table, calm as still water before a storm. Across from him, Harrison Remington looked like a man who'd aged a decade overnight. Victoria sat beside her father, her usual composure cracked by dark circles that even expensive concealer couldn't hide. The SEC investigation had hit the news at midnight. Their lawyers had been working non-stop ever since. Let's begin, announced Gerald Whitmore, the board's eldest member and supposedly neutral party. We're here to address Harrison Remington's petition for a vote of no confidence in CEO Theodore Ashford. On what grounds? Asked Patricia Chen, another independent board member. I've reviewed the documentation. The Fitzgerald deal is exemplary. Mr. Ashford's relationship with Miss Clark, while unconventional, violates no company policy. The grounds, Harrison said tightly, are that Theodore has prioritized personal matters over corporate responsibility. His reckless interview last night exposed this company to unnecessary scrutiny. You mean he exposed your illegal activities? Marcus Webb interrupted. Let's call it what it is. Those allegations are unproven, Victoria snapped. Actually, a new voice rang out from the doorway. They're very much proven. A woman in a navy suit entered, flanked by 2 federal agents. She held up credentials. Agent Sarah Morrison, Securities and Exchange Commission. We've completed our preliminary investigation into the shell company allegations. The room went deathly silent. Harrison Remington, Agent Morrison continued. You're under arrest for securities fraud, insider trading, and market manipulation. Harrison shot to his feet. This is outrageous. My lawyers are being notified as we speak. The agents moved forward. You have the right to remain silent. Meredith watched in shock as they handcuffed Harrison and led him out. Victoria sat frozen, her face ashen. "The vote," she whispered. "We can still hold the vote. I hold my father's proxy." "Actually, you don't." Gerald Whitmore pulled out a document. "Per the company bylaws, any shareholder under federal investigation has their voting rights suspended pending resolution. That includes Harrison, and by extension, his proxies." "But I'm not under investigation." "Yet," Agent Morrison said from the doorway. "Miss Remington, we'd like you to come to our offices to answer some questions about your knowledge of your father's activities." Victoria's composure finally shattered. She turned on Theodore with pure venom. "This is your fault. You and that little gold-digging nobody destroyed my family." "Your father destroyed your family the moment he chose greed over integrity," Theodore said calmly. "Meredith and I are just the people who refuse to be collateral damage." "You think you've won?" Victoria stood, shaking. "You think this is over? I still have allies. I still have resources. And I swear to God, Theodore, I will make you both pay for this." "Victoria." Gerald's voice was sharp. "I suggest you leave before you say something that makes your legal situation worse." For a moment, Meredith thought Victoria might actually lunge across the table. Instead, she grabbed her Birkin bag and stalked out, her heels echoing like gunshots. The remaining board members exchanged glances. "Well," Patricia Chen said dryly, "I think we can safely say the vote of no confidence is moot." "Agreed," said Michael Torres, another board member, "though I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Theodore, your relationship with Miss Clark, while legal, has created complications." Theodore's jaw tightened. "If you're asking me to choose between this company and Meredith, I'll save you the trouble. I choose Meredith." "I'm not asking you to choose," Patricia said gently. "I'm asking how we move forward in a way that protects both the company and your personal life." Diane stood. "If I may, I have a proposal." She distributed folders to each board member. "Meredith Clark has been operating far below her value for 3 years. I propose we promote her to Senior Vice President of Client Relations, a position she's more than qualified for. She'll report directly to me, eliminating any appearance of impropriety with Theodore. And," Marcus added, "we implement a clear company-wide relationship policy. Full disclosure, no direct reporting lines, complete transparency. What Theodore and Meredith have is the model, not the exception." Gerald studied the proposal. "This would require Miss Clark to prove herself in a very public way." "I can do that." Meredith stood, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "I've been proving myself my entire life. I'm not afraid of scrutiny." Patricia smiled. "You closed an $80 million deal and faced down the Remingtons without flinching. I don't think a little scrutiny will be a problem." "All in favor of the promotion and new policy?" Gerald asked. Every hand rose. "Then it's settled." Gerald turned to Theodore. "Congratulations, Mr. Ashford. You still have a company. Try to keep the drama to a minimum from now on." Theodore's laugh was pure relief. "I'll do my best." As the board filed out, Meredith found herself pulled into Theodore's arms. He held her like he might never let go. "We did it," he murmured against her hair. "It's really over." "Not quite," Marcus said apologetically. "Victoria still has her personal shares and her trust fund. She can't vote, but she can still make trouble." "Let her try," Theodore said. "She's lost everything that matters: power, influence, her father's protection. What's left?" His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Enjoy your victory. It won't last." V. Meredith read it over his shoulder and felt a chill despite the warm office. "She's not done," Linda said quietly from behind them. "Women like that never are." "Neither are women like me," Meredith said, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. "And I've got a lot more to fight for." Theodore kissed her forehead. "We've got a lot more to fight for." Outside, spring rain washed over Manhattan. In the reflection of the boardroom windows, Meredith saw not the scared girl from Kansas, but a woman who'd stood her ground and won. The war might not be over, but this battle belonged to them, and tomorrow they'd start planning a wedding. 3 months later, Meredith's baby bump was just beginning to show beneath her ivory Carolina Herrera dress. The wedding was set for tomorrow, an intimate ceremony in the gardens of Theodore's Hamptons estate. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. "Something's wrong," Meredith said, staring at her laptop screen in the bridal suite. Her mother was downstairs coordinating with the caterers, and Theodore was supposedly golfing with Marcus and the groomsmen. Diane looked up from the seating chart. "What is it?" "The Fitzgerald contract. Someone's been accessing the files remotely, multiple times over the past week." Meredith's fingers flew across the keyboard. "The IP address is masked, but the access code is... It's Victoria's old employee credentials." "That's impossible. We deactivated those months ago. Unless someone gave her a back door." Meredith's blood ran cold as she traced the digital footprints. "Diane, she's been downloading everything. Client lists, proprietary algorithms, strategic plans." Her phone rang. "Theodore." "Meredith, don't panic, but we have a situation." His voice was tight with controlled fury. "James Fitzgerald just called. Someone sent him doctored documents claiming we've been inflating projections and hiding losses. He's threatening to pull out of the entire deal." "Victoria." Meredith was already grabbing her keys. "She's been stealing files. I'm looking at the access logs right now." "There's more." The Wall Street Journal received an anonymous tip about insider trading, with fabricated evidence pointing to you. They're running the story tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, their wedding day. "She's trying to destroy everything at once," Meredith whispered. "I'm 10 minutes out. Don't do anything until..." A crash downstairs made Meredith drop the phone. She ran to the balcony overlooking the main hall and froze. Victoria stood in the entrance, wild-eyed and disheveled, a far cry from her usual polished appearance. In her hand, she held a thick manila envelope. "Where is she?" Victoria demanded of Linda, who'd emerged from the kitchen. "Where's the little thief who stole my life?" "I'm right here." Meredith descended the stairs, Diane close behind. "What do you want, Victoria?" "What do I want?" Victoria's laugh was unhinged. "My father's in federal prison. My trust fund is frozen. The man I've loved since I was 16 is marrying trailer trash. What do I want? I want you to suffer like I've suffered." "Theodore never loved you," Meredith said quietly. "And deep down, you know that." "He would have," Victoria's voice cracked. "If you hadn't seduced him, manipulated him with your fake vulnerability and your convenient pregnancy. The baby is real, Victoria. Our love is real. Your delusions are the only fake thing here." Victoria's hand shook as she held up the envelope. "This contains enough fabricated evidence to destroy both of you. Insider trading, embezzlement, corporate espionage. I'll release it to every news outlet in the country. You'll spend your wedding day in handcuffs." "No, you won't." Marcus Webb stepped through the front door, followed by 2 FBI agents. "Because you're already under arrest." "What?" Victoria spun around. "Agent Morrison's team has been monitoring your activities for weeks," Marcus explained. "The backdoor access to company files, the doctored documents sent to Fitzgerald, the fabricated evidence. We have everything, Victoria, including the digital trail showing you hired a hacker to create it all. You can't prove..." "We can." Agent Morrison stepped forward. "Victoria Ashford Remington, you're under arrest for wire fraud, computer crimes, and attempted extortion." As they read Victoria her rights, she fixed Meredith with a look of pure hatred. "This isn't over. My lawyers will..." "Your lawyers can't help you," Theodore said, entering with the groomsmen. He walked straight to Meredith, pulling her protectively into his arms. "You've committed federal crimes, Victoria. Multiple felonies. You're looking at years in prison." For the first time, fear flickered across Victoria's face. "Daddy will fix this. He always fixes everything." "Your father is serving 15 years for securities fraud," Agent Morrison said quietly. "He can't fix anything anymore." The reality seemed to hit Victoria all at once. Her perfect life, her unlimited resources, her untouchable status, all gone. She crumpled, her designer dress pooling around her as she sank to the marble floor. "I loved you," she whispered, staring at Theodore. "Since we were teenagers. I've loved you my whole life." "No," Theodore said gently but firmly. "You loved the idea of me, the status, the power. You never knew me at all." As the agents led Victoria away, Meredith felt something unexpected: pity. Victoria had everything money could buy but had never learned what actually mattered. "Are you okay?" Theodore asked, his hand resting on her baby bump. "I'm better than okay." Meredith leaned into him. "Is the Fitzgerald deal secure?" James already called back. Once Marcus showed him the real documents and explained Victoria's scheme, he was horrified. He's actually increasing his investment as an apology. And the Wall Street Journal story. Killed. Our legal team provided proof it was all fabricated. Theodore kissed her temple. "It's really over now, Meredith. No more threats. No more schemes. Just us." Linda approached, mascara slightly smudged from tears. "That poor, stupid girl." "Mom?" "Oh, she deserves everything she's getting," Linda clarified. "But imagine being so empty inside that you'd destroy lives rather than build your own." "I almost feel sorry for her," Meredith admitted. "That's because you're nothing like her," Diane said. "You fought for what you earned. She tried to steal what she thought she deserved." That night, after the chaos had settled and the house was quiet, Meredith stood on the terrace overlooking the ocean. Tomorrow she'd become Mrs. Theodore Ashford. In 6 months, she'd be a mother. Her journey from a Kansas trailer park to a Hamptons estate seemed impossible. Theodore joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Nervous about tomorrow?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "Not about marrying you, about whether I'm ready for all of this. The wealth, the scrutiny, the responsibility. You've been ready since the day you walked into my office and told me my market analysis was flawed." He turned her to face him. "You didn't wait to be ready, Meredith. You made yourself ready. That's who you are. And if I fail, then we fail together, and we get back up together." His hand covered hers on her stomach. "That's what family means." In the distance, sirens wailed as Victoria was transported to a holding facility. But up here, under the stars, Meredith felt only peace. The war was finally over. Tomorrow, a new life would begin. The September sun cast golden light through the garden as Meredith stood at the makeshift altar, her hand in Theodore's. 6 months pregnant, glowing in a custom dress that celebrated rather than hid her growing belly, she'd never felt more beautiful. "I, Theodore James Ashford, take you, Meredith Ann Clark." His voice was steady, but his eyes shimmered with emotion. "From the moment you corrected my quarterly report in front of the entire board, I knew you were extraordinary. You challenged me, inspired me, and showed me that the best partnerships are built on mutual respect and genuine love." Meredith's throat tightened as he continued. "You came from nothing and built everything. Not through manipulation or shortcuts, but through brilliance, determination, and integrity. You're the strongest person I know, and I promise to spend every day proving I'm worthy of being your partner." Her turn. She took a shaky breath. "I, Meredith Ann Clark, take you, Theodore James Ashford." She smiled through tears. "I was terrified of you when we met. This powerful, impossibly brilliant man who seemed to exist in a different universe. But you saw me, really saw me, when most people only saw where I came from." Theodore's thumb traced circles on her hand, anchoring her. "You didn't save me, Theodore. You stood beside me while I saved myself. You gave me opportunities and trusted me to seize them. You loved me not despite my background, but because of the person it made me. I promise to be your partner in all things, in business, in life, in raising our child, with honesty, passion, and unwavering support." "By the power vested in me," the officiant said warmly, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Theodore's kiss was tender, reverent, full of promise. The small gathering erupted in applause. Linda crying openly, Marcus grinning, Diane dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. The reception was intimate, just 50 people who'd stood by them through the chaos. As Meredith and Theodore swayed to their first dance, she caught sight of the city skyline in the distance. "What are you thinking?" Theodore murmured. "That a year ago I was eating ramen in a fifth-floor walk-up, wondering if I'd ever be more than someone's assistant." She looked up at him. "Now, I'm VP of Client Relations, married to the love of my life, about to become a mother. It doesn't feel real." "It's real." He placed her hand over his heart. "Feel that? That's beating for you. For our daughter. For the life we're building together." "Daughter?" Meredith's eyes widened. "You found out?" "Doctor?" "Martinez called this morning." His smile was radiant. "I hope you don't mind. I couldn't wait." "A girl." Meredith pressed her forehead to his chest, overwhelmed. "We're having a daughter. A daughter who'll grow up knowing her mother is a force of nature," Theodore said. "Who'll learn that strength comes in many forms, that success is earned, not inherited, and that love is the greatest achievement of all." Later, as speeches were made and champagne flowed, sparkling cider from Meredith, Marcus stood to toast. "I've known Theodore since business school," he began. "Brilliant, driven, but always holding something back. Then Meredith walked into his life, this whirlwind of intelligence and determination. And everything changed. She didn't complete him. She challenged him to become his best self. That's what real love does." Diane added her own toast. "To the woman who proved that merit beats nepotism, integrity beats manipulation, and courage beats fear. Meredith, you've changed this company, and all of us, for the better." As sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Linda pulled Meredith aside. "Your father would be proud," she said quietly. "Not of the money or the title, but of the woman you've become. You didn't let poverty define you, and you won't let wealth change you. I learned from the best." Meredith hugged her mother. "You raised me to know my worth, and you taught yourself to demand it." Linda touched her daughter's stomach gently. "Now, teach your daughter the same." As the evening wound down, Theodore led Meredith to a quiet corner of the garden. "I have something for you." He handed her a leather portfolio. "Wedding gift." Inside were legal documents. Meredith's eyes widened as she read. "You're giving me shares?" "Theodore, this is 20% of Ashford & Co., he confirmed. "Making you the second largest shareholder. Not as my wife, but as the executive you've proven yourself to be. The board approved it unanimously. I don't know what to say. Say you'll build this empire with me, as true partners." He knelt, placing his hands on her stomach. "Say you'll teach our daughter that she can be anything, CEO, artist, scientist, or all three. Say you'll never doubt your worth again." "I promise." She pulled him up, kissing him deeply. All of it. Forever. 5 years later, Meredith Ashford stood at a podium in the Harvard Business School auditorium, her daughter Eleanor, named for Theodore's grandmother, watching from the front row. "They'll tell you success requires connections," Meredith addressed the graduating class. "That you need the right family, the right schools, the right network. But I'm proof that what you really need is competence, courage, and the refusal to accept limitations others place on you." She scanned the eager faces before her. "I grew up in poverty. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through state college. I started as an assistant and endured people who thought my background made me less than. But I also met people who judged me by my merit, who gave me chances and trusted me to excel. Find those people. Be those people." After the speech, a young woman approached, nervous, determined, wearing a thrift store blazer. "Ms. Ashford, I'm from a small town in Mississippi. No connections, lots of debt. Is there really room for people like us at the top? Meredith smiled, thinking of that terrified girl who'd once walked into Theodore's office. There's not just room, she said. There's a seat at the table waiting. You just have to be brave enough to take it. That night, in their penthouse overlooking Central Park, Meredith found Theodore reading Eleanor a bedtime story. Their daughter, brilliant, curious, already showing her mother's determination, interrupted constantly with questions. Is the princess really going to run the kingdom, Daddy? Absolutely, Theodore confirmed. Just like Mommy runs our company. I want to run things too when I grow up. Then you will, sweetheart. Meredith kissed her forehead. You can be anything you want. After Eleanor was asleep, Theodore pulled Meredith onto the terrace. Do you ever miss it? He asked. The simplicity. Before the media attention, the board meetings, the constant scrutiny. Never. Meredith leaned into him. Because I didn't fall in love with simple. I fell in love with extraordinary, with challenging, with you. Even on days when I'm impossible? Especially then. She turned to face him. You know what I do miss? Those late nights in your office, arguing over projections, stealing kisses between conference calls. Who says we can't still do that? His smile was wicked. I hear the new VP is terrible at market analysis. Might need the CEO's personal attention. Their laughter echoed over the city. The same city where a scared assistant had once become a force of nature, where impossible love had conquered corporate warfare, where two people from different worlds had built an empire together. In the distance, the Ashford and Cumberland building stood tall, its lights blazing against the night sky. Inside those walls, new assistants dreamed of making their mark. New executives fought for recognition. New love stories waited to begin. But tonight, this story had its perfect ending. A girl from nowhere and a boy from everywhere, proving that the greatest deals aren't made in boardrooms. They're made in moments of courage, sealed with trust, and fulfilled through love that refuses to break, no matter what storms may come. The end.